Hey everyone, Nightharo here, and today I have a Magplar build guide for you. So this build today is really for those who like the traditional way of playing a Templar, which is using either our jabs or our sweeps, and that's what this build is designed for, okay? This is a certain play style. If you're new, this is a little bit less accessible than it used to be because of the mythics and other things required, so just keep that in mind. Hopefully I'll be doing a one-bar build that'll be a little bit easier in the near future that'll be more beginner friendly. But this is very much the traditional Magplar build that most of us have been looking for, that's just kind of updated to be more modern. And of course, if you're very experienced, you can remorph a few of these skills and you can make this a stamina build as well. I won't be going over that today though. I might do that in a future video. Okay, so let's first up here, we'll pop up the card. You can find these cards here on YouTube, or you can always come by the That Wasn't the Boss Discord server, and you're welcome to copy them, mark them up, use them for your own personal use. Feel free, you can share them with friends, what have you. It's here for your use and to kind of be able to share easily and as a reference guide. So let's go ahead and talk about it here. First up here we have Barb Trap. Barb Trap we use from the passives from the Fighter's Guild skill line, increases our weapon and spell damage just by being on our bar. The other thing is that it also is a very good single target dot. I will note we don't need the minor force on this skill because of the mythic that we're going to be using with it. After that we have Power of the Light. This applies both minor breach, which can be helpful for our group, although there's a lot of sources of minor breach now, so it becomes less important, but it also mirrors our damage. Okay, this is a single target ability, so we don't really need to use an AoE fights, but just keep that in mind. It's a good ability to keep up. Even though it has a shorter duration, we want to try to keep it up absolutely as much as we can. After that, we have Puncturing Sweeps. Puncturing Sweeps is our main spammable. Not only does it do most of our damage, it also heals us, or at least a lot of our damage. It also heals us while we're using it. Okay, so this is a really nice ability to be able to just, hopefully most of you know, but you just spam this whenever you're taking damage, and you can kind of damage your way into healing yourself, and it works pretty well. After that, we have Radiant Oppression. Radiant Oppression is what we used in our Execute. So when we get to 40% health, or below 40% rather, we want to start using Radiant Oppression as our spammable instead of our Puncturing Sweeps. This is another channeled ability. It's also referred to as the Jesus Beam from time to time. Last thing on our bar is going to be Inner Light, and that we actually don't cast. We just have it here on our bar for the passives. Okay, so you never need to cast Inner Light. You just put it on your bar for the passives. After that, we have our Flawless Dawnbreaker. We mostly have this here just as a passive, although you can use it if you're not going to get enough ultimate back to use one of your more costly backbar ults. You could use this instead. After that, moving on to our backbar, we have Stampede. This works well with our two-handed Maelstrom Sword backbar. And then we also have Carve. Carve is a interesting skill. When the first time you cast it lasts for 12 seconds, second 22, and then 32. But you do need to make sure that it never ticks down all the way. So I recommend casting this a second or two early if you can. Each time you cast it, it'll go up 10 seconds up to 32 seconds. And it's really important that you don't let it tick all the way down. So keep that in mind. Works really great for longer fights, not so good in shorter fights, so keep that in mind. After that, we have Solar Barrage. Solar Barrage, not only does it do a decent amount of damage in an area around us, it also gives us 5% increased damage to all of our other class skills, which is a pretty big deal. 5% doesn't seem like a lot, but you get all these small buffs and they add up to be quite a bit. So we want to make sure we keep Solar Barrage up 100% of the time, and it can be really helpful even towards Execute. I will tend to keep this up, not all the way to 0 health, but I still recast it at like 20% or above. And that'll generally make sure that it lasts pretty much to the end. After that, we have Ritual of Retribution. Again, just does really good damage, and it also provides a synergy for our group, so it's a nice one to have. After that, we have a flex spot here. If you need a slot of self-heal, this is where you put it. Breath of Life works really well, but any self-heal, if you want to use Vigor or something else, you're welcome to. You could also slot Vampire's Bane. That'll give you a little bit more damage. That's the most optimal thing to do, is just to put another one of our class dots. Vampire's Bane lasts for a very long time, so that's really nice. We don't have to cast it that often. It lets us cast our sweeps a lot more often. Or you could also put something like Inner Light here if you don't need to heal and you want to kind of simplify your rotation a little bit. You'll lose like a 1k or 1% or more of damage, okay? It's not very much damage that you're actually losing, so keep that in mind. And then after that, for our back bar, I personally recommend, if you can, Mage's Guild Shooting Star is your best option here for AoE big damage. If you don't want to or haven't unlocked Mage's Guild, it's not really a big deal. Use Crescent Sweeps from the Templar skill line, and it works pretty well, okay? Is it not quite as good in a lot of situations? Yes. Is it very comparable? Also yes, okay? So don't worry about it too much. I just hate for people to think, oh, I need to go grind out all of Mage's Guild so I can get this one skill on my bar. If you do that too often, there's a lot of things in the game that can be like that, and you'll want to quit. So don't think that you absolutely need the Mage's Guild Ultimate. You can totally use the Crescent Sweeps from your Templar skill line. And I think that's it for skills. Not a whole lot of flex spots on this particular build. It's just because it's kind of built to do one thing really well, so not a lot of options, or not as many options, okay? There are other options on Templar, like there's plenty of other ways to play, but for this particular build, a little bit less than I usually often have for you guys. Now, moving on to CP. CP, I'm going to do its own standalone video in the near future, but basically, what you see is what you get, okay? For blue CP, Biting Aura, Wrathful Strikes, Master at Arm, and Exploiter, I think those are the best CP to use. I recommend using them. Exploiter used to be a thing where like, is off balance being applied in a group, given or not? It's usually being applied in all but, solo situations, and in those situations, missing a 3% of your damage or something, it's not really that big of a deal, as most content overland dies pretty easily anyways. For red CP, this is totally a choose your own adventure. I recommend some stuff that I like, but you can use whatever you want. Expert Evasion gives you a free roll dodge. Rejuvenation gives you a little bit of extra recovery. Celerity gives you a little bit extra speed in combat, which is always nice, and Fortified reduces your damage taken by everything by increasing your armor. Again, you can slot whatever you'd like here. For Mundus, I recommend the Thief Mundus. That's just the best thing to do for all DPS. This is a Magicka build, so we're putting all of our points into Magicka. And then for our sets, I recommend Reliquin will give you the max damage on a single target. If you want something that is more generally useful, I would go with Whirl of the Depths. And then our second set is Deadly, and then we're using the Velothi Urmage Amulet, so we are using that mythic with this build, and then one piece of critical damage, and Slime Crawl is the best way to get that. I will note, if you want like the best all-around build and you don't want to be swapping out gear set, you want to body Deadly, and then do Whirl of the Depths on your jewelry and then your front bar, okay? And that makes this build really accessible because getting Deadly body pieces, they're a lot cheaper than getting those front bar daggers, okay? And it's going to work almost as well. You're going to lose a little bit of damage, but it's going to work really well for you. Don't be afraid to do that with this build. Now, if you don't have either one of those trial sets, you can go with the crafted set Order's Wrath, and that's going to work really well. So you would do Deadly and Order's Wrath, all in medium. Put them wherever you want in that situation because you can craft them and you can put them wherever you want. And you can also forego the amulet until you unlock it. Any good monster set, Za'an works really well from Scale Collar Peak, but it's really anything you want to put here in the meantime. If you can't afford Deadly and you want to do something else with Order's Wrath, of course, you could also do Law of Julianos, which is another craftable set. You could also do something like Ward Maiden, which is what drops in Vardenfell. That is a overland set. You can also buy it from vendors. It should be very cheap. It's not the best set, but it works well with all of our Magicka damage, so it actually works decently well, and then you can replace it with something better once you can afford Deadly or something like that. For all of our traits on our gear, hopefully you can see it here in all the parses, but we're going Divines all the way down, Bloodthirsty on the jewelry. We want increased weapon and spell damage on our jewelry, and then on our back bar weapon we want it infused with a Berserking enchant, which increases our weapon and spell damage. And then on our front bar of daggers we have Nirnhoned in our main hand, which will increase our weapon and spell damage. And then you can either do Precise or Charge. Charge will do a little bit more damage single target. Precise will be better for AoE. So if you're never going to swap it out, I would just go with Precise on your dagger if you just want AoE damage and you want it to be generally good. If you want that maximum single target damage for really optimized things, you want to go with Charged on your daggers. Now for rotation on this build, what you're going to do is you're going to precast Solar Barrage. That only applies in an area around you, so you can cast it before you actually go into combat. And then after that, you're probably going to charge in with Stampede. That's a really good gap closer. And then after that, just kind of put down all of your dots and then go into your sweeps as your spammable. Whenever a dot is about to expire, go ahead and recast it. Make sure Carve doesn't drop off. That's one you really want to make sure you cast early. Even if it's a second or two, that's totally fine. And then just keep up all of your dots and use your spammable in between. Whenever you get ultimate, drop it, and you'll be in good shape. If you want more custom advice, if you want more specific advice about certain situations and what have you, you can always ask me down in the comments. I'm happy to help you as much as I can, but I would strongly encourage you to come by the That Wasn't the Boss Discord server. I have it linked here on my channel on YouTube. You can find it on the banner. And come by, we have help channels there. You can drop a parse and ask for advice, and we can give you specific advice based on what is going on with you, okay? And no one's gonna make fun of you. No one's gonna give you a hard time. We're all just there to help. We've all been in the situation where like, man, I never thought I'd parse 30K. Honestly, never thought I would, okay? And now I can do like 110K or whatever, right? So, we've all been there. Don't be afraid to come by the Discord server. We'd love to help you out. We run trials, PCNA, but even if you're on some other, platform, we're more than happy to help you out, okay? As much as we can. So anyways, I think that's it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this build, and we'll talk to you next time.